All right, hi. Welcome to this recording of grants at IU13. When, why, who, and how. We offered these as live sessions and now we're recording it to help staff who are newer to IU13 understand the grants process here and how to get started working with grant services if you want to go after a grant. With that in mind, here's what we're going to cover today. Who is Grant Services? What Grant Services does for IU13? What we can do for you. The grants process and how we work collaboratively, how to start the process, and how to find us. We're going to cover a lot of material, but by the end of the video, if you can do the 3 things that are highlighted here, understand what we can do for you, how to start the process, and how to find us, it's going to be great. So first of all, who are we? My name is Amanda Paveglio. I am IU13's Manager of Grant Services. I've been with the IU since July, August of 2010, and I've been managing our competitive grant seeking efforts since about 2015 or so. In my spare time, I like to knit, I'm in a band, and I am married with cats.
Hi, my name is Bethany Parmer. I'm a coordinator of grant services. I have been at IU13 since the 2012-2013 school year in various roles, and I have had the opportunity to work with Amanda in grant services since July of 2020.
So what we do for IU13.
So the mission of grant services is to work to help secure competitive funding for IU13 and its programs, to help the organization continue and expand its work worth doing. So a competitive grant application is a discretionary funding. That means that it is based on a competitive process by the funder, and we are selected based on their review criteria. So that's why grant services focuses squarely on making sure every grant application that we send out the door is complete and competitive. So what does this mean? So to achieve our goal, we researched different funding opportunities and analyzed them for the fit with IU13's mission and programs. We help programs think through and strengthen their ideas that they want to pursue. And we ensure that each application package is complete, accurate, and aligned to the funder's formatting requirements. So what we do for IU13, we work with all departments. We're big picture thinkers, which means if we hear about an opportunity or a need in one of the different departments, if there's a way that we can connect those ideas to other departments, we do that by being able to maybe find funding that can support all of them. We do research continuously. We notify and advise different programs of opportunities that are out there, and we help staff navigate the grants process. So what can we do for you? We create work plans and templates. We help prepare and submit proposals. We proofread and we edit. We create and we format attachments, and we ensure budgets and narratives and attachments all align to tell the same story. So what grant services doesn't do, we don't create new initiatives. We don't create grant budgets or force anyone to pursue a grant. We don't tell anyone how to run their program. We don't offer services to IU13 districts, and we don't do internal fundraising. So in the past 5 years, we have submitted over 130 grant applications. 90 of those were awarded and received, totaling over $24 million. So 56 of those grants were in the instructional services department, and 32 of those grants, specifically in instructional services, supported community education. These grants ranged anywhere from federal, state, corporate, and foundation opportunities. So some of these grants that you may have heard of include like the PAYS Lab at CEC, the STEM Lending Library, Citizenship, Excel at IU13. Each of these is an example of an opportunity that may have come from a variety of different funders in our community or a blending of different funding.
Thanks. Yeah, so that's our mission. That's why we're here at IU13. And it's a description of the kind of high level types of things that we can do for you. But let's make this a little more concrete for what it could mean for you and for your program. So maybe this has happened, or maybe it will happen. A state agency, PDE, perhaps notifies you of a funding opportunity and tells you that IU13 should pursue it, and your boss agrees. Or a relative's employer offers community grants, and you don't know if or how IU13 could go for one of those. Or your program has a new initiative or idea that they want to try, but no money to try it with. Or you inherited a grant due to staff changes and you have no idea what to do next. These scenarios pop up pretty regularly, and we are here to help. We can help determine if IU13 is eligible to pursue a given grant opportunity that we find out in the world. We can work with our Lancaster Lebanon Education Foundation to pursue community funds if that's appropriate. We can help develop your idea into something fundable and look for possible funding matches of local or regional or national funders. And we can help you transition into leading a grant-funded project, understanding the reporting requirements and if we're going to need to renew it, and if so, when, those sorts of things. We can also help you determine if or when we need to interact with human resources or tech or procurement or the contracts office as we're putting together a grant application. We can help you understand the different steps involved in completing a grant application. And there's sometimes a lot of steps. We're going to get into that in a little bit. We can help develop a work plan for completing and submitting the application on time. And we have all kinds of templates that we can use or adapt so that we don't have to start creating everything from scratch. So the grant cycle, the life cycle of a grant application and project is pretty complicated. This chart is one that I created when I started managing grants here at IU13 because I needed to help myself understand what all was involved in the grants cycle and process. And really there's 4 main phases. We're going to get into each one in turn. There's the pre-application phase, the actual creating the application and submitting it phase. There's actually doing the project and the reporting phase. And then there's closeout or reapplying. To start in the pre-application phase, there's a couple of different ways to get into this. And we're going to get into these in turn as well. But basically, if you've got a need in your program and you need some money to get started with it, we call that a need-based strategy. And you'll come to us with an idea, and we'll help get a little bit more meat on the bones of your plan so that then we can start looking for funders in the community that might be good prospects to fund that project. On the other hand, sometimes we start the process when a grant opportunity lands in our lap. Sometimes we call that an RFP, a request for proposals. Those come down from the federal government or from PDE or from other locations, and we have to decide if it's something that we can pursue, that we want to pursue. We'll have a bunch of internal conversations around that, and if we decide to go after it, then there will be some pre-planning, and then we'll start to work on the application.
So application and submission, this is basically the meat and potatoes of what you might think when you think of a grant application. Grant services specifically, we will attend and facilitate work sessions, participate in emails and Teams meetings, track various pieces of the application, proofread and nitpick and edit, and we're usually the ones to hit the submit button by the time it's all said and done. But in this instance, there's also work that we need to have happen from different kinds of program staff, or you, if you're the one who's helping to submit an application. As program staff, you would help to contribute to letters of support, attend funder webinars, which both grant services and program staff would help with. You would work with business services to develop a budget, write content for the narrative, and contribute your personal or professional expertise to the narrative itself. Once we're through all of the steps and the application has been edited, then we're ready to start talking about submission. After it's submitted, Then we have follow-up communication. Grant Services takes care of that if any is needed. We also will wait till we hear from a funder. This can take a couple weeks, couple months. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than that. If we're not funded, then we thank the funder for the opportunity to have submitted an application, and we start conversations internally about, do we want to move forward with this funding? Do we want to press pause for now? And then hopefully we hear a yes. And in that instance, we move to the next phase of the grant cycle.
So that phase is actually the doing of the project phase. So the money's in, yay, let's go do the thing. This is where Grant Services will mostly step back. We're going to be off and helping other teams with other pre-planning and other application parts of the process over here, while your program is actually doing the thing that you propose to do. We will help get this phase started with a kickoff meeting saying, hey, we've got the funding. Remember, this is what we need to do. This is the data that we need to collect. This is the reporting requirements. And after we've kind of set that, then you will go off and buy the things and run the trainings and help the teachers and help the kids. We can help with reporting as that goes through the phase. If it's a 1-year grant, there will probably be a single report that's due at the end. That's both a financial report and a programmatic report. If it's a multi-year grant, there will probably be interim things, once a year, once every 6 months. Sometimes they're quarterly. Often those reports need to get submitted through the same portal that the application went through. And since we were the ones with the logins for the actual applications themselves, we will often be the ones to also submit the reports because we have the logins. But we'll certainly be looking to you and your program to tell us, what are we putting into that report? As we get to the end of the grant, then we'll be moving into sort of the final reporting phase, which is here. Again, if it's a 1-year grant, this would be about a year after we start. But many grants are multi-year. They can be 2, 3, 4 years long. And so there is a close down process as we get to the end where we are making sure all the money is spent. We're making sure that all the records are up to date. Well, we will have wanted to be doing that continuously, but as we come to the end of the grant cycle, we'll really need to make sure that we are putting a bow on everything. If we want to reapply for funding for that same initiative, we'll want to talk internally about, do we need to make some modifications to make it even better? Did we learn any lessons from doing it the last time? What other kind of refinements do we want to make? Do we need to ask for more money than we did the last time? So as we make those decisions, and if we decide to reapply for more funding, then we will start back into the proposal development phase and do another submission for another cycle, and the cycle will go around and around this way.
So as we've kind of alluded to throughout this presentation, we've been talking about how grants are a team effort. We can't do grants without other program staff, and it is truly a group effort. So in this diagram on your screen, you'll see that there are darker arrow lines and then there are lighter arrow lines. All of the darker arrow lines are going to show more involved communication over the grant process. So obviously the green box is Amanda and myself. There's a dark arrow that goes over towards program staff. This would include potentially you as a program administrator or main contact, or maybe it's other forms of your staff coming together with you, as well as your supervisor. We also work with business services. For every grant application, there's going to be a budget. So that communication between you and grants or business services, as well as us and business services, is fairly dark. And then we also can work with outside partners depending on the type of grant that we're submitting. That may or may not be a requirement for the grant. There also might be instances where we need to bring in HR or tech services, or the contracts office. So depending on the needs of the grant or what you're trying to do with your grant dollars will depend on who all will be involved and who will be on your grant team. So here are some of the responsibilities when it comes to program staff or grant services. So program staff will establish project concept and design, establish project goals, make personnel decisions, evaluation metrics, provide base or best practices, identify and solicit partners, draft MOUs and partner letters, create budgets or shopping lists, procure materials with grant funds, oversee project execution, collect data during the project, or monitor budget during the project. Grant Services, on the other hand, will analyze the RFP and funding guidelines, create application work plan, provide project planning tools, document templates, boilerplate language, proofread, edit, write, advise on narrative structure, help align funder goals and IU13 goals, prepare attachments, coordinate proposal and approval and assembly, submit the proposal, and help with report submissions.
Yeah, that's right. If you needed to put this in a nutshell, you could think of grant services. We're really the process experts. We focus on the grant package, and the program staff is experts on their program and really what the program needs. So how do you actually get the grants process started internally here? This is a close-up of the top of that grants diagram that we showed a few minutes ago. And as I said, there's two ways to start a grant project. There's the need-based strategy, and there's the opportunity-based strategy. In a need-based strategy, IU13 is basically saying we have a need or we have an awesome idea, and it just needs some money to get going. And here we're going to be proactive about our planning. We'll start to capture what's the concept. Is there a needs assessment that we can do, whether a big one or a small one? Any kind of data that we can use to back up our statement that this need is a need is going to help a funder have more confidence in funding it. We'll want to start doing some kind of plan, and it says long-term here on the screen. It could be short or medium term as well, but we'll want to think about who's going to benefit. Not just directly, the kids or the teachers, but are there any ripple effect benefits that might go through the community? What are we going to do to sustain the project? This is going to look really different if we're trying to buy some equipment versus if we want to do a multi-year project with teacher training or something like that. Maybe we want to do a logic model, which is sort of a graphic organizer of what the project could look like and what we're going to need to do it. With that together, we can start to put together a generic grant proposal. It's not targeted at a specific funder, but it starts to really lay out our case for what we want to do and why we need money to do it. And then once Bethany and I have that, we can start to shop it around and look across the funding landscape and see, okay, what funders out there in the world would be interested in funding this, because it also matches their missions. Once we identify some funders that might be good fits, then we can tailor that generic proposal to fit better for this funder and that funder or that funder and start to send that out. So if you're in this situation, we have a Smartsheet form called Funding Research Requests, and we ask you to complete this form to give us, Bethany and me, some basic details about your project idea. It asks you for your contact information, your supervisor's email address, and the reason why you're seeking grant funding and some details on the idea. You don't have to have a whole logic model and sustainability plan and everything like that figured out before you submit this form. We just need a little bit of information so that then we can reach back to you, have a broader conversation, and start to help build out your idea to a point. You can find this form in a couple of ways. If you want to find it right this minute, you can scan the QR code that's on your screen and it'll take you right to it. Or you can go to our Grants Hub and on the main page, click the button on the right-hand side that says, I want help finding funding prospects. When you get to that form, it's going to look like this. It says funding research requests. It's a simple form. And again, it's going to ask you for your program, your contact information, your supervisor's email address, and then there's a drop down that says, what am I seeking a grant for? Equipment, program expansion, salaries, general support. There's a whole list of options that you can choose from. You can click as many as are appropriate. We ask for a little bit more detail about what you want to accomplish. What's your project idea? What's the need you're trying to solve? And some idea of how much money you estimate you're going to need. Now, we're not going to hold you to that dollar amount, but as Bethany and I are getting ready to do prospect research, sometimes it's a lot easier to find a $5,000 grant than it is to find a $75,000 grant. So if you at least know how many digits worth of money you think you're going to need, that can help us figure out how we're going to best seek funders for your idea. Once you've submitted that form, we get a notification, and then we're ready to start the process of talking to you and then starting some prospect research. The other way that you can enter the grant cycle is if a RFP, again, a request for proposal, or some other kind of grant guidance gets sent to you, or you find it. And this is where a funder is saying, we have money to give away to accomplish our goals. Convince us to give some of it to you. Ooh, okay. So in that case, we're reacting to the funder's action, the funder's announcement that they have money. So once Bethany and I have the RFP, we'll read it, we'll help you read it, and we'll break it down and analyze it. Does that opportunity align with IU13's mission, with your program's mission and capacity? And we'll have to make a decision. Yes, it does align. No, it doesn't align. Or it kind of sort of could align. So if we say no, it doesn't, then stop. We don't have to go after every grant we see. If the answer is yes, then we'll start the process of preparing a proposal for the funder's guidelines. And if it's sort of, we're not sure, then we'll have some internal discussions. We'll talk about the pros and cons of applying. Do we have the capacity to do it, or could we have the capacity to do it? And then we'll probably start to prepare a proposal. If you're in this situation, we have a different Smartsheet form, and it's called the RFP Application Assistance Request Form. You can find this form either by scanning the QR code that's right here on your screen, or on the Grants Hub main page, right-hand side, click the button that says, I want help preparing a proposal to a specific funder. When you get to that form, it's going to look a little different. First, it's going to say RFP, an application, right on the title. It's going to ask you for the funder name. That's how you know you're on the right form for this, is we're reacting to an action from a funder, so we know who the funder is. Put that name here. It could be the XYZ Foundation. It could be the U.S. Department of da-da-da-da-da-da. It could be the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Also, if there is a due date that's stated in the RFP or the grant guidelines, we'll want to know that, because that'll give us a sense of urgency or not. If this is something that's due in a month, we'll want to get on it right away. If it's something that's due in a year, or something that doesn't really have a deadline, it's what they call a rolling application, we'll know that we can take just a little bit more time before it's not going to be quite as hair on fire. Again, we'll want your contact information, your supervisor's email address, and a little bit of description about what program here at the IU this would be supporting. Again, where can you find these forms? This is a screenshot of our Grants Hub. And if you're watching this video, you probably already found the Grants Hub. But these forms, there's a right-hand navigation bar that's not shown on the screenshot here. It's got those two buttons. You can also go to the Contact Us section, either by clicking the Contact Us tile or the little link at the top, and those buttons are located there. So after we receive a form submission, either from our prospect research request form or the RFP application assistance form, there is a quick approval routing that those run through, and it's really just for awareness's sake. So when a research request form comes in, whoever submits it, their supervisor gets a notification that says, hey, Jane Smith has submitted a request that Grant Services help find funding prospects for this topic for about this much money. Are you okay with that? And so that would route to the supervisor, the program director, and the department director. And assuming that all of them are on board with that, then Grant Services will proceed with you to start the prospect research search. The reason that we do this is, again, mainly for awareness's sake. We want to make sure that you've been talking to your supervisor about the idea, but that information may not have trickled up to the department director, and the supervisor, the program director, the department director, they might have additional information that would make it unnecessary or unwise to pursue a grant at this time. So we just want to make sure everybody's on the same page with that. The same goes for the RFP assistance request. The person who submits it, this routes to their supervisor, program director, and the department director, again, so that they have awareness that we're going to start working on a grant application for this particular project in this amount of money. And then assuming that everybody approves it, then we will proceed to start working on that application. We also use Smartsheet to route a completed grant application for internal approvals before we hit submit. Now, this is different from the last routing process that we just talked about. This is where we have all put together the grant application. It has all the pieces, parts involved. The budget is complete. And now we just want eyes on it and sign-offs on it before it goes out the door. So in addition to the person who's the main program lead and their supervisor and the program director and the department director, this also has the opportunity for the business office, the fast rep, to review the budget one last time and make sure that all the costs are correct and the line items are correct and the numbers are correct. This also then will route to our executive director, or in the case of the Lancaster Lebanon Education Foundation being the fiscal agent for us, their executive director, because oftentimes it's the executive director's name who's on the top or the bottom of the application. And of course, we want them to be able to review it before it gets submitted from them. So once this entire thing gets routed and approved, then the grant services person who's assigned to the grant will go ahead and actually submit the application to the funder for real.
All right, so how do you find the Grant Services office? The best way to find us is virtually. That's the most consistent way. Amanda works full-time remote, and I'm in the office maybe 1 or 2 days a week, depends on the week. You can see a map of our physical location on this slide. We're just inside the main lobby at Burrell. But consistent ways to get a hold of us, reach out on Microsoft Teams. We have a bookings link. There are multiple email addresses. So there's a grants at email address where you can reach either Amanda or myself. And then there's both Amanda and my email addresses listed on the screen. And also the IU13 Grants Hub on SharePoint.
Yeah, and the again, the Contact Us section of the Grants Hub does have all of these tools on it. So thanks for watching. This is the end of the video. We look forward to hearing from you in the future about some kind of grants opportunity that can do exciting things for your program and for IU13 overall. Take care. Bye.